Well, all right. And welcome to my podcast. I'm Peter Walker. I'm your host. And this is Let's Talk Concerts. Hey, man.
Hey, man. How are you?
Hey, welcome back. Do you have any really favorite shows that you had? What are your favorite shots? Those shots that you like look at again and again at?
Probably a 1992 Iron Maiden on the Somewhere in Time tour.
Oh,
I think that was 87. Yeah, it was 87. And here's the crazy thing. 3 years prior to that, I was still in high school. So if somebody would have been telling me, oh, you're going to be photographing Iron Maiden at the arena in Fort Worth in 3 years, I would have gone, whatever. Yeah, but there's a really, really strange story about the whole thing behind that.
Let's hear it.
I shot it for the Major Daily, and I got this really nice picture of Bruce Dickinson. He had his foot up on the monitor. It's a black and white. He's got a spotlight in the back, so it's getting a little, just beautiful. Just a little trim hairlight. He's got the mic down. He's just kind of looking off. It's a really nice picture. So they ran it and all that good stuff. And I said to myself, well, if I ever get an opportunity to meet Dickinson, I'm going to get that thing signed. So 5 years down the road, my brother was in a country band, and his sound guy actually went out on that tour as the I think the monitor engineer, I want to say. So this would have been the Fear of the Dark tour, 1992. And so I went out, I got the picture printed. So it's just this really nice picture, and I got it printed in like a 16 by 20. And it's black and white, and it's just the spotlight's on him and everything else is black except for that one light. And we got VIP passes, so it's like, man, I get to get Bruce to sign this picture. So I took it with me, and they're arriving in the area before the show. This was at the Starplex or Dos Equis or Super Pages or whatever they call it now in Fort Worth. I'm sorry, in Dallas. So Bruce came out, and he was talking. And when it was time for him to sign stuff, I already had my thick silver paint pen ready to go. And I rolled the picture out in front of him, and he signed it. And he gave me a graph about this big. I mean, it was nice. Huge. Very nice. And, it's just one of my favorite things. But the story doesn't end there. So I get it framed. It's hanging up on my wall. It's a real proud moment for me.
Sure.
And in 2000, so this was like in 2000, that was in 1992. Then in 2002, so roughly 10 years later, I meet this guy in Dallas. And the reason why we connect is because we're both Pittsburgh Penguin fans. Because I like hockey. I got into hockey before it came to Dallas. And so my allegiance is to the Pens. And we were talking one night, and I said, well, how did you get to start going on all these tours? And what it was is he was a student at SMU, and he had a friend called him and said, hey, do you know anybody, or can you help us get some guys to work local security for the Texas Jam? He says, oh yeah, man, no problem. I got it covered. So he's at SMU, he's in a fraternity. So he calls on all of his fraternity brothers, and boom, they're all there. So they took care of it just like that. So the guy with the promoter said, his friend said, dude, he goes, I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to take care of you. And pretty much what happened is he would go out on tour, coordinate the local security. So some of the big tours he would go out on were like the Master Puppets tour, a bunch of the Ozfest early on, Maiden, Priest, whatever. So he and I are driving to go see King's X one night. I'm just kind of talking. We still kind of, just learning everything about each other. And I said, hey, what's your favorite piece? Your piece being, because he has so many things that he's acquired. He says, well, it's like this multi-platinum award from Judas Priest. And it's like this big, I guess it's got all these platinum records across the top. And he says that's his favorite piece. And he goes, well, what's yours? So I started telling him the story about my Iron Maiden photo. I said, well, I got this photo of Bruce that I got signed on the Fear of the Dark tour, and this is what it looks like, and I've got it framed up. And I was telling him that I was getting ready for Bruce to sign it, and then when I put it out, And I said, and I gave Bruce the pen. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, Bruce signed it in the bottom right-hand corner. I go, dude, how do you know that? He goes, I was standing right next to you. He goes, I remember.
Whoa.
And he says, he says, I guarantee you, I probably have a picture of you backstage. And sure enough, 6 months later, he calls me, hey man, guess what I found? So there's a picture of me standing next to Steve Harris holding my Bruce picture, waiting to get signed. And so he was sitting next to me and he told Bruce, after he signed it, because we didn't know each other then.
Sure.
Yeah, he told Bruce after he signed it, he goes, Bruce, he goes, that's a really nice signature you gave him. He goes, it's a really nice photo. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a picture of it because it's in my game room, and I'll send it to you so you can see the visual of this story. It's just like one of those crazy stories. 10 years down the road, our paths crossed, and it was just like one of those wow moments when he told me, oh yeah, and he signed it in the bottom right-hand corner.
That's an amazing story. I mean, what a coincidence,
Yeah, it is, So I'm sure you probably noticed this back here,
Tell me about it.
Well, so that was a poster that I bought in 1990 at a mall in Houston. And I just recently got it framed after 30 years, but it was like sealed. I kept it sealed. It was old stock.
The King in Hawaii.
Yeah. Aloha from Hawaii. You're exactly right. Well, I told you what my first concert that I photographed was, Bon Jovi on Slippery When Wet in 87. The first concert I ever went with the family. We went to go see Elvis in 74.
Get out of town.
Dude, so you think the story I just told you is weird? Anyways, so my dad I grew up in an airline family. That's why we always would go to Cleveland, because we just hop on a plane in the 70s, fly non-rev, and go up to Ohio. Because I'm sure I've told you that, my grandparents were up in Ohio. And so my dad in downtown Fort Worth, he was the city ticket office person, the CTO. So he worked for a major airline in the CTO. And one day, one of his clients came in and gave him 4 tickets and says, here, take your family to go see Elvis. Well, we're on the front row. So this is like my first concert experience, and we're on the front row. We're not front and center, more on the far right, but still just maybe 5, 6, 8 feet down from me where the
front row, nonetheless.
At Elvis. Yeah. Okay. So early in the show, my mom gets a scarf. There's a picture of her, grabbing the scarf and, her hand. And then throughout the night, he would toss one to me and I'd get it. But these women were so crazy that they would come running up from the back of the floor or whatever. And I would get into a tug of war match with these women. And I lost 4 scarves. I want to say 4.
And how old were you at that time?
I was almost 9. So my birthday, my cat's coming up here. I'm sorry. My birthday is in August. So this was in June of 74.
All right.
And so throughout the show, I think I lost about 4 scarves. And the last scarf I lost, hang on a second. My cat's name is Elvis.
Perfect.
The last scarf, I lost because I was already upset because I lost 3. I got into a really serious tugging match with the lady and she yanked it from me. So, I was a kid. I punched her in the cooter as hard as I could. I just remember she was wearing this light blue polyester pantsuit or something. And so, I lost 4 scars and, I'm crying my eyes out because I'm a 8-year-old kid about to be 9. And I've had, this stuff yanked from me all night long.
Yeah. And you can see the emotion in your mom.
Yeah. So at this point, there was no barricade. It was just the stage, and the stage was high. I'll have to find a picture so you can see how high the stage was. And so you would have Fort Worth City Police, Fort Worth police officers working security. And so my dad went up to the officer directly in front of us and told him what was going on and asked him, next time Elvis comes over, can he hold him back so my son can get a scarf? So the cop said, yeah, no problem. Well, I'm sorry, man, my cat. So Elvis came over and my dad motioned to the officer. And so the officer held these women back. My dad put me up to the stage. He held me up. So Elvis knelt down. So I'm like face to face with Elvis Presley, like face to face. I could see the sweat beads on his forehead and everything, because it was late in the show. And I pulled the scarf off his neck, and I pulled it from his left side. And I remember as I was pulling it, it got hung up on one of his chains. And I think it might have been like that German cross thing that he would wear. But, I got it. And then my dad pulled me down, and I gave it directly to my mom, and she shoved it into her purse. So my first concert experience, I pulled a scarf off of Elvis's neck. I was face to face with Elvis Presley in June of '74. And here's something that just recently happened. They've been releasing live recordings, soundboard shows called Follow the Dream, and they released the June '74 shows. He played 4 shows, a Saturday and a Sunday. He played Saturday matinee, Saturday night, Sunday matinee, Sunday night. And so they released the 2 shows on Sunday. So one of those shows on the recording is the one that I pulled the scarf off of him. So it's really neat knowing that some point in this late in the show on the disc is when I pulled a scarf off of his neck. And it's like Elvis Fort Worth 1974.
Wow, brother, what a connection, man. What a story. What an everything. I mean, what a first concert.
Exactly. So what I'll do is I've got, back in 2014, I finally got the scarf put into a shadow box, but it's got some DNA. It's got some sweat stains on it and stuff.
Never washed that scarf.
It stayed in. It pretty much stayed, just put away for all those years. So I had to get you a picture of the shadow box too.
Please. Have you ever been to Graceland?
I did. I worked in hockey back in the early 90s. So I made a team trip, and it was minor leagues. We made a team trip to Memphis in late 92 or early 93. I can't remember. And we went to Graceland. We didn't have the time to go on a Graceland tour, but, we said, okay, let's meet at this time. And so only chose 3 places to go. Obviously, I wanted to go see the Lisa Marie. I didn't go up and tour the Lisa Marie, but I wanted to see the Lisa Marie and the Hound Dog, which was the smaller.
That's the plane across the street.
Yeah. So the Lisa Marie is the larger plane. And then there was a smaller one, and that one's called the Hound Dog. And then I went to the car museum. And then I went to this really small museum that had a bunch of that had like stage clothes and then mic stand and a guitar and just all this stuff that I could relate to, stuff that, I could, I remember seeing or things. Yeah. People would give him like, hey Joe, I did a check last night, gave great as hell. Huge teddy bears. And I remember, one person gave him a huge trophy. People would take it up to the stage and he'd take it. So I saw Elvis in '74. Then I saw him in '76 again. So I saw him twice, actually, '74 and '76. But in '76, we're in the balcony. But
still, that's Elvis. And I'll tell you, some Dallas history is that one of the largest sound companies in the world was out of Dallas, Texas. Showco.
Okay.
And I believe that Elvis was a Showco account.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. I have friends that could confirm or deny that, but I believe that to be true.
Yeah.
I believe that to be true.
I read, there's a biography out on Elvis, and it's so detailed that there's 2 volumes. It's called Last Train to Memphis, and I'm looking at the first one's called Last Train to Memphis, and then something else. So it goes from his birth up to his service, then his service to his, to him passing away. And there's a lot of detail. This is the biography if you want to read all about it. This is the 2 biographies to do it. And I didn't know, but his Lisa Marie plane was outfitted and customized at an airport on the north end of Fort Worth called Meacham Airport. And it's like my jaw dropped when I was reading that in the book. And I'm like thinking, how come my dad never took us out there to go see it? Maybe he didn't know about it. I mean, I don't know. But,
Yeah.
my father's no longer around. But so I read that book after my father, was gone. But it's just crazy.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. I met his daughter. What's her name?
Lisa Marie?
Thank you. Duh. Duh. What was the wife's name?
Priscilla.
Thank you. Priscilla's the wife, Lisa Marie. She was at Radio City. She was doing some kind of performance for something. It's one of those fashion rock shows. And I hung out with her, and she was super nice. Like, she had no pretentious attitude at all. And she was kind of a little lost there. She didn't have any handlers that were really taking her from A to B. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And it was just so weird looking into the face where you could definitely see Elvis in there.
Yeah.
In an attractive female. The Elvis is in there, the eyes, the structure here.
That's, and just even gazing into the eyes.
I know.
I remember, was it Life magazine or whatever? I can't remember, but I remember there was either a pictorial or Lisa Marie was on the cover, but they had her kind of decked out like the 68 comeback special. And
oh,
and
wow.
Looked at that picture. It was like a split in image. It was so creepy.
Right, we're in black.
Yeah, wearing black leather.
Black leather. See, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. And standing right next to her, looking in her face, man, it was a little trippy.
Yes, sir. I remember, I think I vaguely remembered the 68 comeback special, but maybe they aired it a couple years after the fact. But I do remember watching the Aloha from Hawaii with the family. I remember us watching that on NBC.
Wow, incredible. I went to Memphis. I went to his home. I was the tour manager for a rock group called the Sons of Elvis, and they had one hit on MTV, and and they were a great bunch of guys, but they were very mischievous, and I had to keep my eye on them. Yeah, right. Wrong place to take them. And we got all the way through the tour of the house, and the drummer like literally threw himself on Elvis's grave. Security had to come, had to peel him off the grave, had to escort him out of there. Had to make a scene. Can't just have a normal fucking day.
Well, now you're going to make me look these guys up. Sons, SONS, as in
yes.
Okay.
SONS, Sons of Elvis, and they had a couple of MTV hits, but they were really, really a great rock band, and they should have been a really big group, but they had horrible management, and I don't want to say horrible management, but they had horrible management. And
what label were they on?
They were on, it was a rap label out of LA called Ruthless. Not Ruthless.
Because isn't Ruthless like a part of Death Row, or were those
Death? Jesus Christ, Peter Walker. The fuck was the name of that label? I don't even remember. And I took a paycheck from them for a year. Yeah, I got paid for a year from these people, dragging their artists out on their first tours and taking them around the country on their first thing, because when a band, back then when a band got a hit, you'd take them on their first tour around the nightclubs to get their act together, so to speak. Right. And then in the afternoons, you take them to the radio station, or back then the record store appearances, to do some autographed meet and greet shit.
I always loved in stores. I think it was such a great move to do stuff like that.
It was on the marketing end of it, but when you just got to town that morning, you got a sound check to do, you got a radio station appearance somewhere, you got to get the guys in the hotel, you got to get them fed, someone's got to sleep, you got to get to the show, we got to do a count in with the merchandise at the club. I mean, I got to go to this fucking meet and greet the goddamn record store. Burn another hour there, and they're late, and you are absolutely right. It's great for the fans to come in, meet the artists, especially when they're young.
Right.
Especially when they're young on the way up.
I remember when Poison did a in-store on the first album, they played Dallas, I want to say 5 times. In the location, the in-store was like literally a mile and a half from the house. And I remember this vaguely. It was a Sunday. So Friday night here in Texas, football is big time. So I think I might've been shooting Friday night football. I can't remember. I think I was shooting Friday night football. Then Saturday night, I went to Dallas and I covered the Beastie Boys on the License to Ill tour with the Cro-Mags. And they played at Dallas Fair Park Coliseum. And the night before was Wasp and Slayer on the Rain and Blood album in a band called Raven. And I said, well, how was the show? How was Slayer? And they just said, man, the crowd went nuts. I guess they destroyed the floor or whatever. The Slayer crowd destroyed the floor. Sounds like it would happen. And then Sunday, Poison, that was on tour with Rat, was supporting Rat, and they were playing in Tarrant County, and they did it in store. It was literally like a mile and a half from the house. I was so tired. The mind is saying, yeah, go, go, go. But the body is like going, no. And, I regret it, but, it's just, I was just too tired.
I relate.
I was too tired. So
life on the road, dragging the kids around, dragging the kids around. And then, in between all that, you start taking them to festivals, where there's 10 X bands playing, the second, third band on, or that kind of thing.
Right.
And that continues until they're no longer at nightclubs. Now we're in theaters. Mm-hmm. Making the move up, getting better production. Now we're out of a van. Now we got a bus. Get a couple more staff, lighten the load. The natural progression of things, right?
Did you ever come through being part of the Texas Jam?
No, I did not. I felt that was happening when I was still a drunken playing bass guitar.
Okay. The last one was like 87, 88.
No, I was a bass player in a touring heavy metal band, 87, 88.
Okay. Would you play regionally? Were you guys playing regionally, or did you guys, do all the states, or
we did 17 states.
17 states. So would you guys back then, was that when you would do six nights at one club, and then Monday was the travel day, and you went into Tuesday through Sunday? And
for the most part, that was it. It was usually a Wednesday through Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday through Saturday.
Okay.
Kind of thing. And the bigger the city, the smaller the date. You couldn't go to a major city and do a week. You go to a major city and do a day, but you go to Hydenville, Georgia, and do a week. You can go to Macon, do a week, Columbus, Georgia, Myrtle Beach. We did the East. We did this East Coast nightclub circuit, and we played predominantly military towns.
Oh, that's a good gig there.
Oh, yeah. Well, most of the clubs, and I actually wrote a book on it, so it's no secret, but most of the clubs we played were half strip clubs and half rock clubs. The strippers would strip on one side of the room and the rock band would play on the other side of the room.
Okay.
Because alcohol, heavy metal, and strippers is the trifecta of military entertainment. And
that's what those girls wanted. They wanted their heavy metal musician boyfriend. They were hoping to get, a boyfriend that would land a record deal. And
yeah, and it was funny about that. Some of that is being friends with guys in other bands, right? And that we're all sleeping with the same girls at different cities. It's like, oh, you sleep with her in Jacksonville, so do I. Who you banging in Flint, Michigan?
Oh man. Hey, did you guys ever play Hammerjacks?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, you know,
That's a one-nighter.
yeah, it is. Around 86, when the scene was really, really strong here in Dallas, Fort Worth.
It
A
was
top,
everywhere. Yep.
a band, a top band could pull in 600 on a Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
And it was just amazing. And it's just so hard for people to try to understand that, a local band doing that. So, but it was happening.
Yeah, it was.
We had a club called Savvy's here in Fort Worth, and it was like one of those major stops, along with Houston, because like Mannequin from I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. Mannequin
Yes, it
from
does.
yeah,
Yes,
they would come on down. They would come on down.
They were a huge band, and we were doing as many bands were, much like they were doing. But it wasn't like today where every nightclub has sound and lighting installed in it. You
Right.
had to bring it with you. You were the touring production.
Yes. There was one band I remember that, Savvy's, they had lights and stuff like that, but this one band brought in just a whole much more. And I think they were out of Detroit or Michigan area, a band called Cody Lee. And I just remember their lights that they brought in, and I just couldn't believe it. And I remember watching Shannon Larkin in Wrathchild before Wrathchild went to Atlantic Records, because eventually he went on to Godsmack. So I got like a couple of pictures of him, like a little 16-year-old kid behind the kid in the club.
Yeah, I opened up for Wrathchild a couple times.
Yeah. Do you remember that news documentary show, maybe 57th Street or 52nd Street or something? And they did something on Wrathchild. They followed them around. And so everything that we're talking about, bringing in your production, you got to do this and do this and this. They documented all that. So
wow.
If I find that link, because it's on YouTube, if I find it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. I spent a couple months before I started this podcast thing doing interviews with guys that were roadies and or musicians that did that in the 70s and 80s for a booking agent called John T-Tack, who had a company called Southern Talent International.
Okay.
That if you were capable of taking your package from city to city, he would book you.
Yeah.
And he would get you and sometimes John's methodology was, okay, where are you guys at right now? Okay, drive east for 3 hours and pull over and call me. And I'll get you some coordinates of which way you're heading. But we did that. I did that for years with him, and I got a lot of great stories from guys who much like my story, of what it's like to be broke, to be across America. This was a time before ATM machines, before the cell phone, fax machine, before the pager, before it was the information dirt road. We were out there lost in America. There was no way to find us. I mean, I had friends of mine that stole a Jar-Tran truck, and they had it for so long that the trucking company went out of business. They just kept the truck. Truck stealing was so popular from state to state. We would just go somewhere, rent our U-Haul local for 3 hours, and just leave town with it. It was just the standard of how we did things. I believe that we're responsible for the credit card deposit.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's just that you leave it in the next city in some parking lot with the keys above the there's some kind of there was some kind of statute of limitations that we believed to be true, which probably wasn't true. And I don't remember what the rules of the game were, but I remember one of my first jobs was they said, okay, Pete, I need you to go down to the U-Haul place and get a truck. And I said, well, yeah, we're leaving town today, right? He goes, yeah, just get it local for one day. So yeah, but like me not getting it. Oh, I see. We're stealing it. I got you. Got it. With my driver's license. Okay, sure. Wow. You want to be in show business, kid? Come on, step up. You want the gig or not?
So what year was this? When was this? About what time?
Early 80s.
Early 80s.
Yep. Early 80s. and just dragging it from town to town, you know, dragging it from town to town. And it was tough and it was brutal, but you know, I was young, dumb, full of cum, and all I wanted to do was drink alcohol and have sex with strangers, females, and party and move the show from town to town, you know. So my needs were simple, achievable. You know, everything I wanted was in view.
Yeah.
You know, no consideration of the future. I didn't consider it an occupation.
So I'm assuming that you would drive some of these. How many people would cram in the cab?
Oh, I've had four. I've had four in the front seat of a 24-foot truck. I have had four human beings in the front seat of a 24-foot truck from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Key West, Florida. Boom. My longest one.
Yeah.
My longest one with four guys in the front, you know. One time, four guys in the front, we had an issue with one of the fellas who was overtly chatty, you know, and that's coming from me, and I'm very chatty. and and I kept telling him, you know, I really need you to shut the fuck up. And we had a couple problems with him. It wasn't his only problem, but he really refused to shut the fuck up. But we were in Alligator Alley in between Naples, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale, in South Florida, and I couldn't take it, man. And I pulled the truck over, got out, walked to the back of the truck, opened the truck. I grabbed his luggage and I threw it over that little fence that keeps the gators from walking on the highway. You know, and he came out. He's like, "What the fuck?" And I closed the door. I said, "Man, I told you, shut the fuck up." Got back in the truck. I drove away and left him there. And it was a dick move. And I'm almost sorry, but I'm not sorry. All these 35 years later, you know, I felt that I gave the guy plenty of opportunity. And, you know, traveling with a bunch of douchebag pirates, road pirates, has consequences.
Yeah.
You know, like being left on the side of the road. Go ahead.
In the box truck, would you guys ever have, if space is limited, would you guys ever have anybody just ride in the back of the truck itself, like with the cargo?
Well, I'll tell you this. One time we trying to leave Huntington, West Virginia, and we're trying to get to Virginia Beach, which is like you know, it's just 2 states away, state away. And the place that we usually went to, which was a rider place where we never had to leave much of a deposit. I think it was like a $500 deposit. Right. But they had a new management. They changed the policy and now they wanted like some crazy deposit that we didn't even have. So what do you think we did? We went to the U-Haul place like we did, local rental, 1 day, 3 hours. We got 2 trucks. One truck we put all the gear in, and the other truck we put my buddy's furniture in from his apartment. We put all the guys back there in the truck, in the furniture, you know, the couches and chairs and kind of shit. Now, you know, and I think that was one of those 16 footers. They had the furniture in it. Now, you know, that little pass through slidey door that you have in those kind of U-Haul trucks between the cabin and the back.
Yes, sir.
Right. Well, 2 things happened on that trip to Virginia that I remember, and I will share with you. First one is I remember going up a hill, and you know, there was some pretty tremendous inclines between Huntington, West Virginia and Virginia on Route 60, which I think that it was before I-64 was open all the way through. You had to take the rural routes. And we're going up this heavy incline, and those assholes in the truck with the furniture in it had the rear door open to some degree, you know, to let some air in, which I dig that.
Okay.
But they hit a bump, the door went open, and one of the couches came all the way out with those fucking assholes on it, you know, and that couch is hanging out the back door as it's going up the hill, you know, the screaming, the yelling, the horror, you know, all of that going on. That's the first one, and no one was killed. Perfect. The second was when we were almost in Virginia. You got to go through this hectic tunnel that goes underneath the Chesapeake Bay before you get to Norfolk. And I was driving the big truck, and the little truck was next to me, and I could see the passenger seat. I could see in the cab 2 people. my buddy Ron, who's driving, and Rob, who's sitting in the sitting in the passenger seat, right? It's a two-seater. We come around the corner in the tube, traffic's jammed up, locks up the brakes. Next thing I know, I look over, there's like 7 people in the cab. You know, they all just came right through that little hole, right through the front. So that didn't always work out.
They proved one of Newton's laws of motion is what they did.
Oh yeah, you can't argue with Newton. Can't argue with Newton. And we ended up doing what we did. We went and loaded the gear into the club. Then we loaded my buddy's furniture onto the beach. And then we left both of those trucks in a parking lot with the keys above the above the visor. Yeah.
So the reason why I was asking if, people ever were in the back, because, I had friends that, banded down here. I don't know if it was the same elsewhere. You would play X amount of days, gigs, whatever, make yourself some money, then head back to LA, try to get your deal. And so, driving from Dallas, Fort Worth to LA, it's a straight shot.
I-10.
But halfway there, you're still in Texas because you're in El Paso. And I guess it's maybe about a 24-hour trip. And I was told the story about a couple of the guys staying in the back, and they would have to pull over every X amount of hours because it would just get so hot in the back of that box truck, because you're going through El Paso. And if this is happening in the spring or in the summer, oh yeah, I'm surprised nobody, keeled over from all that.
And everyone's got a U.S. passport.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you go through, out to El Paso, then Albuquerque, and I guess Phoenix, making your way on in.
Well, I mean, help me out. I mean, back then, Texas speed limit was 55.
Right. It's up to a point now in certain areas that you can hit, I think, 75. There might be an area where you can go 80, but I think the general rule of thumb, for the majority of people is they like to keep it at 75. To me, 75 is a good limit, but I don't know if you're getting up to 80. I don't know. That's just a little too much, but 75, a lot of people, we're happy with 75.
Well, I tell you, I just lived in Miami for 2 years. And if you are on I-95 in Miami and you're doing 90 miles an hour, you're going to get hit from behind.
Oh, geez.
And the people passing you at triple-digit speeds are not the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis. They're the car with a missing windshield and no front left fender. Yeah. It looks like the bolts are flying off it as it's hurling down the highway. You're looking for pieces of fluids coming off it. I mean, that's what driving in Florida is about, which is hysterical because the population there is so lazy. It's like, well, you're in such a hurry to get to work so you can do nothing. Yeah, I'm sorry for all the times that I was a dick to the fans in the front row after a show's over that want some sticks and some picks and some set lists and shit. But that the moment the lights go up and the thing's over, those first couple minutes are just so crucial. Like we are just in such a hurry to clean up that downstage edge and get that shit up so then, so the carps can come through and trust can come in. And, it doesn't seem like much. It's to take a few minutes and I'm gonna peel this off and give this to this chick down there, but it is.
Yeah.
It's a cumulative. It's a cumulative because I tell the young guys, I say, hey, if you stop and give fucking guitar picks and set lists out to everybody that's going to ask, well, lighting's going to load up before you. That's what's going to happen. We got to keep this thing moving, people.
Yeah, there's times, a pick will fall into the pit when we're photographing, whatever, and you'll feel a tap on your shoulder. You know exactly what it is. So when I stop for a second, I'll get down and just move on because I don't want to be the jerk. Is, oh no, you can't have it, and then I put it in my pocket. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on the barricade for a reason. They deserve that pick. I don't need it.
Yeah. And you know, Brian, straight up true. I honestly, and more so than ever, really keep my perspective in of my empathy of everybody in the arena, that this is a big night for the people that are here. They paid money to be here. They made plans. They had to leave their house and they got in the car and they came here and they're excited. And some people have been waiting all year for this event. You know, you gotta always keep that empathy that, you know, everyone here is really excited to be here. You know, and then there's us that are just trying to get through it and get you know, and everyone backstage with the number one topic backstage is, what's your flight? Yeah, I'm moving my flight. That's all we talk about.
You know, it's like, I don't know if there's, you know, other people out there like me at this age that just have such this passion for music and
oh yeah, by the millions
and stuff. And I think one of the reasons why I am the way I am is because a concert was a luxury event for me in high school.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I could go to a couple here and there, but there's a lot of these shows that I missed, and there's a lot of shows that I just wasn't old enough. I wouldn't even consider. I even responded to a Facebook question in regards to that. What band would you like to see? So I started banging them off. I said, no, Boston on Don't Look Back, Foreigner on Double Vision, Journey on Departure with the Babies opening, you know, Ozzy on Diary of a Madman, Queen on News of the World, you know, stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you something that I'm going to edit out is that awesome, man. And hey, great talking to you again, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Really great. And I'll see you next. I'll be on next Wednesday if you're on.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again.
Great, man. Good times, man.
Take care.
Good.
All right, bye.